Hello, welcome to the live chat for Good Girls Die First. As you can see, I'm joined by my two lovely friends, Kasia and Rosie. So before I give them a bit more of an introduction, I've got a few things to say because I will forget if I don't say them immediately. So there are a couple of things that you can win during this episode, I guess you could call it, during this chat. I have got some lovely things from Catherine. Whoops, that's upside down. Ooh. A tarot card bookmark that she signed, and a signed book plate to put in your copy. So 3 people who comment randomly, I think confusing, it will be me that picks you, but it will be my husband picking you, not myself picking you. So you can win. So if you comment, so people who are already commenting are in with a chance of winning these lovely things. The book for next month, I'm going to say this again at the end, but I'll say it now for people who missed the ending. The book we're going to read next month is Last One to Die by Cynthia Murphy, and Cynthia has also offered up some bookmarks and book plates. So if you would like a chance to win those, you can just take pictures of it and use the Way Book Club 2023 hashtag. And I've got another little goodie to give away at some point, but I'm going to do that a little bit later, so I'm not just blabbing at the beginning. This is going to bring up this comment to begin with because that was the first thing I said when I saw Kasia. Yeah. I mean, the T-shirt game is strong. I feel like me and Kasia were bound to wear spooky, as Kasia said, very nearly matching T-shirts. Kasia nearly put a Buffy T-shirt on. And Rosie's wearing something suitably whimsical and beautiful. And I feel like, is there a long skirt attached to it, Rosie? I feel like there might be.
No, I'm wearing sweatpants.
Are you? I didn't know you owned sweatpants, Rosie. I'm shocked. I'm shocked and surprised. And
the dream is shattered now.
I would, yeah. When I'm wearing my long skirt, if it's winter, guarantee I'll be wearing sweatpants underneath. They're warm. They're cozy.
That's fair.
They're really cozy. I wouldn't wear sweatpants out the house. It's not very me. But at home, yeah, I will.
I don't know why I imagined you wafting around the house in the beautiful dresses, just putting things in your pockets and.
Don't believe that I have legs. They fully don't. And I do walk around the house in my lovely wafty dresses, but when I don't have, because I hand make them, I actually don't have that many skirts. So when I wash, sometimes if I'm doing a big wash of them, I'll just wear sweatpants around the house. But I am going to make myself some lovely Victorian wrapper gowns to wear, when I'm doing my cleaning and when I'm sort of just floating around the house. Not that the skirts aren't really comfortable, because they are, but I just want a Victorian wrapper or 7,
I feel like this is a good moment for you to introduce yourself, Rosie, for people who don't know you and wonder why we're talking about enormous skirts. So do you want to start with
okay, my name's Rosie Talbot. I am an author. I wrote this, 16 Souls. Yay. And I'm also a bookseller. And I usually look like a Victorian tea cake, but I'm surprisingly not looking like a Victorian tea cake right this moment. So you'll have to use your imagination.
Yeah, please look Rosie up on her social media under Mara Child, and you will see the delight that is the beautiful outfits. I love the chats. I just nearly said chat rooms. Can't say it. Chats in the back room of Waterstones. I like that when you talk about little anecdotes and stuff.
Story time. Oh, I'm being visited by a cat.
Oh,
might pull my entire setup down. Her name is Haddock. She's chaos. So I'm sorry if anything tips over. It's Sorry,
totally understandable. There are cat and children
Haddock.
dangers. Oh,
Haddock. Mwah. She's a tuxedo cat and she is a whirlwind and she's going to go and destroy something. There she goes.
Oh, yeah, you go, Haddock. Just go and destroy something that isn't a camera or a cable, and we'll probably be okay. Oh, thank you, Rosie, for that. How about you, Kasia? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I started to get addicted to horror at a young age. Well, the first horror movies I watched were Dracula by Coppola and The Exorcist. And then I discovered Stephen King. When it comes to books, I feel like that's a classic for people my age. I think nowadays, thankfully, we have a lot more softer ways of introducing teenagers to horror than back in the day. But I basically jumped straight to Stephen King. And I have a booktube channel called Kasia's Book Cemetery, where I talk about books, mostly horrors and thrillers. The book reviews and all of those good things. And I also have a second channel called Kasia in Wonderland, where I do all horror movie reviews and horror movie recommendations. So basically it's all about horror. Yeah.
Awesome. And I mean, the T-shirt just backs it all up, doesn't it? And the backdrop, I was just smiling as you were saying about Stephen King, because I was like, when I
Yeah,
was a
obvious.
teenager, I went from point horror to Stephen King because there was nothing in between. There wasn't
Mhm.
the kind of wealth of spooky YA that Rosie and I know and love. And right. It's actually probably a good time to say as well that there was meant to be a fourth person on screen, but Chloe unfortunately is poorly, so she isn't able to join us. So I'll see if Kev can pop her info in the comments. If you want to check out her channels and stuff, then you can do that. I wish I could remember stuff off the top of my head like that, but my brain has limited capacity at the moment. It's actually really interesting to come on screen with you to talk about this book, because I think you are both readers of horror, sort of very diverse horror, and obviously Rosie writes it too, so it'll be very interesting. What genre do you call your book, Rosie? I'm saying horror, but I feel like with me, I always pause when I say, I don't think I write horror. I think I write paranormal, murder, mystery, romances.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, Scholastic calls it a romantasy, and I'm like, yes, but like, if romantasy includes like terrifying ghosts and like really awkward kisses on bridges, like it is that, but it's more adventure horror meets paranormal urban fantasy for teens, I guess, or for YA readers. Yeah, I'd say that's kind of what I write.
I totally get that. And I also have the same kind of problem when people say, what do you write? I'm like, oh, have you got 10 minutes for me to explain?
You should just be like, amazing books, buy it, here you go.
Yes.
Yeah, read it and find out.
I do sometimes say that. I went on a live stream last night and she was like, you're an author, aren't you? And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to. I always have a book within arm's reach and it's never set up. It's just that's where they are. And I was like, ta-da! You feel terrible doing it, don't you? But
I think you need like a winch where you can be like, try it, and then you pull a lever and it just kind of goes, and it just like falls down, and then like the little clockwork wings come out the back or something. That's probably an elaborate setup, but it would be cool.
I feel like vampire fangs need to pop out of mine as well. Just to
bat wings, and then that would be amazing.
And then it falls apart because of the elaborate setup.
And it just hits you in the head, and you're like, oh.
So Kev has kindly put in the comments as me, so if you see me commenting, it's generally him, that we are reading Cynthia's book. So if you want to join us for the live show, which is in early July, there is a way to set a reminder following that link. So let's do a few comments and then we can dive into chatting about the book. Hi Shelley, thank you for joining us. Hello Sharon. Sunday is weird. I kind of, I feel that way whenever I'm saying what day I'm going to do stuff on. I'm like, is it Thursday today? Is this a Thursday night reading sprint? It's not. I've already done that one. Yeah. Yes, as usual, Sharon, providing something suitably spooky for us to think about. Hi, thank you for joining us. Hello, nice to see lots of familiar faces. Yes, please all do that if you haven't done so already. I should be wafting my copy around, but I've got a stack of people who've contributed to the anthology in a different room because I keep taking photographs of them to do promo stuff. So Rosie's in my Please Buy a Taste of Darkness stack. I'm so excited about that, but that's a whole different chat. So we can have that chat at another time. Hello. Yes. Mm-hmm. Rosie, here's the question.
It is going well. I've actually literally about 5 minutes ago posted part 5 of the mass unboxing, and I'm just like slowly editing through all the videos, and I keep having more bookmail arrive, so bookmail mountain has shrunk considerably. It's now manageable, but yes, it's going well. I keep finding such treasures and I'm like, oh gosh, that's been on there for months. I'm a terrible person. But I think I just got to ADHD paralysis crunch where I could not open anything for like at least over a month while I was editing. So now things are calmer in my brain, sort of.
See, I don't get sent as many books as you, I don't think, but I get sent probably a couple to a few a week, sometimes more, and I have to open them immediately. Like I sometimes unbox them, but I do like a mini unboxing, so if 3 arrive in one go, I'm like, oh, I'll just unbox them now. Like I'm kind of impressed with your restraint, but also I feel I'd get in the same position if I had more than 10 stack up. I'd suddenly just go, nope.
It's not even restraint, it's like ADHD kind of. I can't do it with like when something becomes overwhelming. It's like I can't.
Oh, okay.
But because normally I would save them up, and then it's also like I have so many things to unbox that I can't make every single one of my social media videos like an unboxing. So I have to paste them, and then they were stacking up faster than I could do the unboxing, and then I got scared and hid from the massive Bookmail mountain. But I'm enjoying unboxing it. I'm loving unboxing it, and I feel like I finally found a sport I'm good at, which is climbing Bookmail mountain. So I'm athletic after all. Who knew it?
Yay! You know, strong from lifting the hardbacks and stuff, like holding the stack, stop you from falling you. Yeah, lots of ways of doing sports with Bookmail Mountain. Everybody chatting because everybody knows each other. Oh no! I hope that feels better soon, Sharon. This is Chloe's channel. If anybody wants to check it out, Chloe reads books, and you can find her under that on lots of different places. Glad you're having a nice Sunday. Oh, I'm still enjoying that. I still really need to read that. Have you read that one, Kasha?
Yeah, but I would like to reread it because I never watched the adaptation.
Oh, okay. So I did the thing of watching the adaptation, so I've like not prioritized it in my head because I feel like I already know something about that. So
yeah, even though it's not a topic that I normally enjoy, anyways, it's too political for me. Like that's just not what I gravitate towards when I just want to relax and unwind. It's too serious matter. It's just like I need to relax right now. I want to either see people getting slashed or go to a fantasy world. Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. And kissing, I like some kissing thrown in as well. Are you much of a Stephen King reader, Rosie? I don't know whether we've had this conversation. I feel like that's relevant to the discussion.
It's probably a very unpopular place to say I'm not really a fan of Stephen King. I've tried several times, and I can understand completely why people love Stephen King, but for me, it's just too slow paced and wordy. Like, he just really, and I know that some readers love that. They love the kind of slow build up where there's tension the whole way through. And in some things I do love that, but I'm just like, start killing people. Come on. Like they're usually quite chunky books, and I just want them to be faster paced than they are. So I've audiobooked some, but I think I DNF'd all of them, and I've just realized that maybe King is not for me right now, and I'm reading other people, and I will go back and try some other King because he's popular for a reason, right?
Yeah, he is, but I do think I chat to a lot of super Stephen King fans, and they say things like, we love him, but his books are really long. Or we love him, but he can be really wordy. Like, It is one of my favorites, and yet he does spend pages describing a dam or pages describing a street or a drain when he could have probably spent a line.
Which is something I don't love about Dickens as well. Like, great stories, great characters, but why are you so wordy?
And that takes us nicely to Catherine Foxfield, doesn't it? Because I'm just going to show you my little Catherine Foxfield stack. So this is the one we read, but if everybody enjoyed it as much as I did, spoiler alert, there are others. So we have Tag You're Dead, which is the one I'm checking. Oh, so it's a stunt where people play like a massive virtual game of tag. And then It's Behind You is about a reality TV show where a bunch of minor celebrity types are trapped in a cave together, and they have to try and spend the night in this haunted cave. And she has a new book coming out in July, which I've forgotten the title of, Help Somebody. But I'm sure it'd be brilliant because it's Catherine. I'm so bad at book titles. If it's not in front of me, I just can't remember it.
All I remember is it has dices on the cover. For some reason, visuals always stick with me more than title. It has dices on the cover.
Yeah, I literally read the title earlier, and I'm kicking myself that I can't just recall it. But it sounds really good.
I'm meant to be getting a copy any time now. I keep looking like, is this envelope from plastic? Oh, not yet. I've been promised one, so it's on the way. I've got a few books actually that I'm really excited about. So every time the postman comes, I'm like, oh. So yeah. Okay, let's get to talking about Catherine's book then. So in the comments, feel free to follow along. I'm going to ask questions of Rosie. Let's just take a pause for the fact that Rosie still has the proof of Good Girls Die First. How beautiful is that?
It's so pink.
It is. It's very vibrant.
So pink.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know. I love the black cover. I think I like the proof more. Like, I love the bright cover.
Yeah, it's nice.
Bright and simple. So I know a little bit about the fact that both of you are fans of Catherine Foxfield's stuff, but let's start by saying, what did we think of this one? Do you want to start, Rosie? Did you read it this time, or had you read it previously?
So I read this as a proof back in like 2020, and then I had done a reread when I think it was last year when which one was it? It was the video game one. Was
Tag
that-
Your Dead.
Yeah.
So I reread it then because we had a little bit of a Catherine binge where I sort of reread all of the ones I had of hers. And then this time, because I'm on deadline, I only had time to reread parts of it. So yeah, it was kind of my like, I've read it like 2.5 times, I think now, and it's held up every time. Like it's so enjoyable. And I think what I love about Catherine's writing is when you sit down and read, don't make other plans, because that's it. That's your day, and it's so engrossing, and you just can't. Like, and this was my first introduction to Catherine's books, and I was just like, yes, I know that this is an author I am going to pick up every single one when it comes out. And I'm trying to think which is my favorite. I think this might be my second favorite. I'm so bad at ranking, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't rate books anymore. I don't bother giving things a star rating because I realize it's so subjective that it kind of is a little bit meaningless. But I'm pretty sure I gave this 5 stars. I don't reread that often, so it's usually a good sign.
Yeah, I think we're in a fairly similar position with it. And like you said about Stephen King, it's like the anti-Stephen King, isn't it? That the pace is so fast and everything sort of has a purpose. If you're reading about a poster or you're reading about a particular set piece, somebody's going to fall off it or die horribly on it or something. So yeah, it's definitely very tight as a book. How about you, Kasha? What do you think of this one? Because I know you've read some of Catherine's other books, but you hadn't read this one, had you?
No, I had not read this one yet. I enjoyed it. For me, it was not super perfect, but I appreciated so many things that she was doing with the book, considering also it was her debut novel. And there were so many elements that I really enjoyed, like the setting or some messages that were kind of like implied about, I will talk about that later. I don't know if we're allowed spoilers, but I'm guessing we are.
Yes, this is a spoiler discussion. So anybody who hasn't read it and doesn't want to hear, then this might be a good moment to turn it off and come
Just
back when you've
making
read the book. Yeah, no, it's good to make sure, definitely.
Yeah, so I enjoyed a lot of things about the book and some of the horror aspects of it. I think I might still prefer maybe Tag Your Dead, because I think that one, maybe it's because it's the first one, by hers that I read. I think sometimes that has an influence, whether you want it or not. The first time you get in contact with an author, it tends to be a little bit more special if you enjoy her books, maybe that first one that you read. So maybe that's why, but it's a really good, solid thriller, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said thriller. I kind of see it as a horror thriller, and I think that Scholastic do that really well with authors like Cynthia Murphy as well.
Mm.
They have these books that sit really nicely in that space of they're really thrilling and fast-paced, and then they have the really, really dark moments, which we'll get to in the discussion. So let me just go through the comments for a moment. Getting Away with Murder. Thank you, Andreas. That's the new one. So that's what everybody needs to pre-order. I think that is a very good sign. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Siobhan. Oh, look, my handy assistant's there. If you want to add it to your Goodreads, there it is. I mean, that's perfect, Sharon. I feel like you need to hunt down one of these proofs. It's beautiful, isn't it? Hi, Charlie. It is a Rosie. Charlie and Rosie sort of on screen together. Yes. I feel like Catherine, sort of, because of when her book came out, she sort of seemed right at the forefront of the kind of exciting UKYA horror thriller thing that we still have going on, thank goodness. Yes, I agree, Sharon. I've started reading Cynthia's today or yesterday. And I looked and I was like, oh, whoops, I've read 70 pages already. I think that their writing is very similar in that way, that it's just really Moorish and you can't stop. So let's talk about the characters, because I had this conversation with Catherine when I first started reading it. I was like, this is so good. Is there going to be a sequel? And she was like, read till the end of the book. There's probably not enough people left to be a sequel, without too many spoilers, because it was based on, and then there were on the Agatha Christie book. So I was quite expecting the fact that there might not be many survivors. But what did you think of it? Because I've chatted to Catherine a bit about this. And she said that she kind of felt that this was a cast of very unlikable characters. But actually, I thought they were a cast of complex characters. And I actually did like things about some of them. Some of them I did not like, because I think they had very little to redeem them. But I'm interested, what did you two think of that? Kasha, do you want to get started on that one? What did you think of the characters in this book?
I mean, when it comes to the characters, that was one of the things that didn't connect with me because I did feel like they were unlikable characters, which also sometimes has a purpose. It doesn't mean that they are not well fleshed out. It doesn't mean that they are not good characters. It just means that maybe they are unlikable for a reason. Sometimes it's because you need to suspect everybody. Everybody has, skeletons in their closet. And this is a group of people that is very mixed, but they all kind of know each other and they all have a secret. They don't know exactly what it is, but they know they're hiding something. So everybody is really like on edge as well. So sometimes people act differently when they are in the situation like that. And I was trying to get connected to them and like them, but I could not really like them except from the guy. I don't remember his name, the one that was like a sports guy that was playing sports. I
Oh,
think he was my favorite because he was
was
really
it
sweet.
Ollie?
I
Ollie, was
think
he
so.
called
Yeah, I
Ollie?
think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. That's the one that I connected the most with. I thought that had a good heart, and the rest were characters that, in a way, I think it made sense because you were not sure if they were good people or bad people. So I felt like that kind of double-edged sword with them made sense, that they were not just all likable or all characters that you had to hate. It was kind of in the middle.
Yeah, and it's an interesting premise, I think, in knowing that everybody there has potentially done something terrible and they're all there because they're scared about this secret getting out. I think that's interesting because, I mean, some way books go full on with the really unlikable to the point of terrible characters, but quite a lot of way, particularly the main character, is somebody who's like lovely and the peripheral characters might be terrible. So I really like the fact that Catherine went there with that, like that everybody has things that, like even Ava, kind of our protagonist, did some things. Like she could have told people stuff that could have saved some lives, but she kind of sometimes held back and was more self-preservation mode than protect the team mode. How about you, Rosie? What did you think of the characters?
I think they're all so deeply flawed. It was fascinating. And I mean, I don't need to like like any characters in a book. I just need to root for them or care about them or find them interesting to kind of, and absolutely this cast like takes you through. And I think what I found so interesting about the book is there's like 10 characters to start with. And I feel like when there's 10 characters, like, yeah, I think sometimes I'll get a few names confused, but each one was kind of still very clear to me when I was reading. I might not always remember their name, but I know who they are and I know exactly what their characteristics, and I wanted to know their secret. And that kind of, that's such a skill to do because it's 10 characters. And I knew when I was reading, I knew what the kind of, or I suspected what the source material kind of inspo might be. And I was thinking like, I don't think anyone's going to make it. Like, I have to be willing to protect my heart because, anything could happen. And like with Ava, I did feel like Ava was introduced because it's her point of view. So she's not softer. Softer is the wrong word. She's kind of nerdy and geeky and anxious. And I feel like there's probably a lot of readers who could relate to some of her characteristics. And also just that insecurity as a teen where we didn't know her, like we don't know anybody's secrets, and I'm like, how bad can they be? And what I love was some of them were terrible, some of them were absolutely awful secrets where you're just like, you are not redeemable, like what on earth, and then some of them are actually kind of minor secrets, or they were wrapped up in other people's secrets, so there was a twist to them. And I just loved how everything was so mapped together. So even if I didn't think I liked a character, I knew they were still going to surprise me. And with Ava, what I did really find compelling about her was just how her perspective was constantly shifting, and how I knew I couldn't quite trust her because she also had a secret, and I couldn't trust her to be a reliable narrator. And then she would make these decisions where I'm like, no, what are you doing? But then I was like, well, in that situation, if I had a secret to hide, would I make a better choice? I'm not going to judge her. So yeah, I enjoyed all of them in different ways, even if I was loving to hate them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and they were also in a completely no-win situation, weren't they? That if you believed the hype of this Whispers creature, which we'll come to later in the discussion, but only one of them was meant to get out of it as far as he was concerned. And it's that thing, isn't it, of do you actually save yourself at the, I kind of think that I would go a long way to save myself in a group of people I don't like that much. So yeah, you put yourself in that position, don't you? You start thinking, actually, like you said, would I be any better in that position? I'd like to think I would be, but I think books are great, aren't they? They give you that they give you that moment of like existential crisis of, am I a better person than this person? But yeah, let's say Sharon was with you on what you said, Rosie, about how there were so many characters. Because sometimes, like some of the books we've read in YA Book Club, people found difficult enough for main characters. And I think it's a real testament to Catherine's writing that there were 10, you know, plus, because there were also peripheral people that we heard about who, you know, weren't on screen or on page necessarily, but there was a lot to keep in your head about relatives and stuff. And I thought she did that really well. So somebody's mentioned, Andreas has mentioned the carnival setting. So maybe that is a good point for us to answer that question. It definitely, her writing, I think the way she structured the plot was great in the chapter ends, agreed. But I think the setting was the thing that I really remembered about this one. I often can't remember plot details, but I just remembered that atmosphere. So I wondered what you two thought of that. Rosie, how about you? Were you a fan of the atmosphere in this one and the setting?
100%. So I think actually it was probably that made me pick it up in the first place, or say yes to the proof, essentially, because I love Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. It's just one of these books that's, you know, so compelling, and the whole carnival setting is part of that. And obviously parts of that book have aged better than others, but as a setting, this kind of carnival where anything can change and anything can be an illusion. Like, already a carnival setting is somewhere where you go to be scared, to feel big emotions, to have fun. But there's something inherently creepy about carnival. Like with the Hall of Mirrors, the idea that you're going to be deceived, or a maze, or the fact that there'll be clowns, any kind of clowns. So I was like, yes, I love this idea of a setting. And then as soon as that setting became a kind of essentially that trope of the closed house, like the locked house where you can't leave, I was like, oh, this is good. Yes, this is going to get really good. Like, no one can leave. And it just really ramped that setting up. And then for me, that like extra ramp came when I realized there was a supernatural thread to it. And I was like, oh, they are doomed. I love this. But yeah, I think, and Catherine, in her writing, she manages to conjure up atmosphere in very few words. Like, again, she's very concise in her writing, but it doesn't lack for atmosphere, because she's got all these different characters. I know we've only got one perspective, but she's showing you those reactions from everybody, and how that setting is unsettling to everybody in different ways. And that's a really clever way to kind of build a setting to be bigger and more expansive than it actually can be on page, because she's got so few words to do it in. I thought it was really clever.
Yeah, it was. Wait till you read her short story. It's so atmospheric.
I'm so excited.
That, I was just thinking like, oh yeah, she does that every time. And I think that, as you said, the closed setting is an annoyance of mine, and I do it too. Like, you could just leave when people start getting murdered, but there's like,
but then you can't.
Yeah,
like, you
they physically can't. Yeah.
Any sensible person will be like, you know what? I'm off. My secret's not that big deal. Even if you'd like killed somebody, you'd be like, you know what? Actually, it's fine. I'll go. But then they can't go, and it has to be that kind of external force that's blocking them. And it's done so well, and it's done exactly the right point as well. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go.
How about you, Kasha? Do you agree with us on the setting? Or did you think that was a strength of the book, or was it one of the things that you didn't enjoy as much?
No, I really did enjoy the setting. I feel like the fact that it's a carnival already adds so much visually for you in your head, but also the fact that it was a burned down carnival after a fire, so you can imagine things are melted. You know, the weather, there was also a storm, it was foggy, so everything like combined really created like a horror scenario for them. And then the pier collapses and they are unable to leave, and then you know that they just need to either face whatever is coming for them, even though they still don't know what it is, but there is no way out. So it's like they don't have a choice anymore. So I really enjoy that. I love the setting so much. I wish they would have exploited even more. I wish there would have been like maybe the characters, they all have to solve a puzzle or kind of go in a Easter egg hunt or something that has to do with the attractions, or like even do it more, because I just love the setting so much. So I would have loved to see it exploited a bit more, but still I just always had, you know, the carousel and everything in my head. And I think it helps so much visually to put you in this situation trapped with the characters. And I really, really love the setting. Like carnivals anytime, especially people have been told not to go there because it's cursed and it's all burnt down, and so it even adds so much to the horror. So the setting was one of my favorite things.
Yeah, you both hit the nail on the head there with the fact that Catherine knows how to say things so economically. Like you said, the placeholder of the fact that we have seen a carnival, so we can fill in the gaps of that. And like you said, Rosie, the fact that she presents things really concisely from a character's viewpoint and based on a character's fears, you just get so much from that, don't you? So yeah, It's definitely a masterclass in writing from my point of view. The perspectives and everything is so good. Let's see what Andrea said about that. Yeah, I do think that the main characters are probably not great people to be around, because it's like, oh, this accident and that mysterious death. Yeah, definitely. I think she did really well with that. Yes, it is. I think Catherine does that really well too. Like the cave in It's Behind You, is that they're trapped in the cave and they can't get out till the next day. I think if they say it's behind you, it's over and they can be removed from the cave. But of course, things aren't as straightforward as that because it's a Catherine Foxhill book. But yeah, I think that she has just mastered that. So something that we mentioned a few times in that is the supernatural direction. And I tend to have mixed feelings about this because sometimes you read a book and the supernatural is just a really convenient way to get around it. It's like, oh, it's supernatural, so anything can happen. And actually, in a murder mystery, you want things to, to be people to be held to account, and it to just be not too convenient. Oh, it's supernatural, explain it all away. However, in this, I really liked it, and I thought that I love the fact with Catherine's books, you spend most of the book sometimes like, is it real? Is this in people's heads? Are they just really drunk, or is there an evil creature kind of, stalking them one by one? Did you like the fact, Kasha, that it was supernatural? Would you have preferred a human threat?
I think it was done in a way that I really enjoyed the supernatural aspect of it. I think it has to serve a purpose. It has to have a good story to back it up, and not just a solution to the problem that you have as a writer. Be like, oh, how do I solve this? Oh, I'm just gonna do it supernatural, like out of the blue without any purpose. So I have nothing against turning the tables and being like, oh, you thought it was one of them, but what if it's something supernatural? I have no problem if I have a good backstory. And I really like that the characters were trapped there by investigating, and they found this room with old pictures from the carnival people, and they were kind of digging a little bit into the story of the carnival, who built it back in the day, what happened, and why it burned, and all of that. So I felt like it was a good background story to back up everything that was about to happen to them. So I really enjoyed that. And I mean, who doesn't love an investigation with old pictures from carnival people? And like, it was really cool to see that. So I did not mind at all that it went supernatural.
Yeah, I thought the Whisper story was clever too. I liked the idea of the guilt feeding him and sort of manipulating them to be fed more and more. It was just like, I thought it was really clever. How about you, Rosie? Were you a fan of the supernatural in it?
I'm always a fan of supernatural. I'm always a fan of supernatural. I'm not saying I will always default to that, but certainly the supernatural element is brought in. I will never be mad about it. Like, I suppose unless maybe it completely comes out of nowhere, but this was very well seeded. And what I liked was, until it's confirmed that it's supernatural, you have your suspicions because you're thinking, if this is one person doing all this, how is that possible? That's impossible. So I was like, maybe it's a group of people in some way, but then I was like, there's already 10 characters. Like, how likely is it that a whole group of people, like, are they characters as antagonists are going to come in? I feel like it might be somebody already within the existing group, like maybe within the existing group that were going to be factions. But then when it was revealed to be supernatural, I was like, yes, that makes sense, because we have that backstory, we have the build up to Whispers. And then when Whispers is kind of revealed and you start to learn all that lore and about the guilt and the fact that it actually gave me very Pennywise vibes, while still being, he's still his own thing. He's not a kind of Pennywise. He's his own thing. But I just like, and for me as well, it also made me go, wow, they're really screwed. Like, because if it's a human or a group of humans, they have certain limitations that are at least within your scope. If you hit them over the head hard enough, they probably won't get up. With Whispers, like, you can't do that. But at the same time, it didn't feel like this being, this monster, was without rules. So the rules were cleverly built. So I understood what the rules were. And I do think that's really important with supernatural stuff, but that was done well. So yeah, I did very much like that supernatural twist. I think it was given enough space and enough build up, so it worked really well.
Yeah, me too. And what you said exactly, I was thinking when I first read it, I was like, if this is a human, I'm going to be really disappointed, because it couldn't be. Like, in some way. And it does seem to be a YA thing, because sometimes YA is kind of forced to be simplistic, or is simplistic intentionally. And then you're like, how did this one person, usually a teenager, pull off all these elaborate things all by themselves? I think in this case, it just worked really well, didn't it? That it was a supernatural being. It explains a lot away, but with enough substance for us not to feel cheated by it.
I mean, what I was
So,
thinking, what I was
sorry.
thinking is that it was also very unrealistic that one person would know everybody else's secrets,
Yes. Yeah.
because how can you know really everybody else's? And whoever brought them there sent them a note that had a reference to their secret, a picture that related to their secret. So I was like, it cannot be one of them, but at the same time, you cannot stop suspecting everybody because they are all acting weird. So, but I thought, who can know everybody's secret if they probably haven't told a soul, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It is the kind of secret, isn't it, that you probably wouldn't have all conveniently told the same person too. So yeah, that's a good point. Let's see what people in the comments are saying. Yes, it was clever. That made me question a lot, because that was the point where I started to go, oh, are they just like, is this the main character who's having like, I don't want to say any other social stuff, and give it away, but like the certain things in popular culture where I'm like, oh yeah, different, say, personality disorders or personality traits. Yeah, I just nearly did a spoiler, so I'm going to move on. I don't want to spoil somebody else's material. Moving on. Yes. Yeah, I like the fact that, yeah, it was a good way for them to not be able to leave and explain. Yes. Yeah, it was clever. Yep, Charlie's with us on that call. So, in fact, I will take a pause to say that I promised another giveaway, and Sonia Hartle sent us some extra copies of The Lost Girls bookmarks and signed book plates. So if you didn't win one and you want one, I've got two. So in the comments, the first person to say, I want one, yes, please, you can have one. So the first two people, and Kev will be the judge of that, so you can't blame me. So with that said, sorry, Kev, let's go down to the next question. So what did you think of the tropes in this one? I think it was very good at exploring horror tropes. Did it use any tropes that you love? We've mentioned the isolated, cut off location, but did it use any others that you really like? Did it use any that you are not as keen on? Rosie, do you want to start us off? Any favourite or not favourite tropes in here?
So actually, like with this question, I immediately thought of a trope that isn't in there that I like, that isn't in there, that I thought it was going in that direction at one point, and then it surprised me by not going that direction. And that's the trope of like the real monsters are humans.
Yes.
I kind of thought that was the point the book was making for a while, and then obviously that was subverted by the supernatural elements and by Whispers kind of feeding on guilt. And yeah, it kind of just, it threw me at the time. It surprised me, and I was like, well, I mean, some of these people are monsters, but it's kind of, the book is telling me that there's always something worse out there, that no matter how bad people get, the concept of evil, the idea of something worse, is always going to be more powerful than anything people can do. And I wasn't expecting that, because we get so many books that do kind of say, but ultimately people are the worst, the things we do to each other are the worst. And I think I just like that it found a balance between that, and it didn't shy away from the brutality of people and humanity, and how these young people, very young people, some of them have committed really horrible acts or inactions. I thought that was really clever. We have a couple of characters in there, one in particular who she's so convinced that she didn't do the bad thing, because she's so convinced by telling herself, oh, it was just words, I didn't, all I said was this. She didn't have to go ahead and follow my instructions. And I thought that tied in beautifully to that kind of balance between who is the monster and where the tropes of that sit. I just thought it's something really fresh with that.
Yeah, I think that Catherine is really good at that, like leaning into a trope to an extent where you go, do I know the answer? Is this going to be the answer? Because I don't know, it's interesting writing for teenagers. Sometimes this is the first time they'll come across a trope. So sometimes in YA, that will be the answer, because you don't want to reinvent something that people have never been exposed to in the first place. But then as an adult reader, sometimes, like you said, that can completely knock you back, because you go, whoa, actually, she's done something that I didn't expect with that. So that's really cool. I like the fact that Catherine kept you on your toes, Rosie. I think that's definitely a compliment. How about you, Kasha? Were there any tropes that you really liked or really don't like and appeared in this book?
I don't think there was anything that I disliked, because I don't think there was anything too cliche and just just done like something we've seen 1,000 times before. I did feel like the characters were a little bit cliche, but I think it also served the purpose that they were all very different. And I think it makes sense considering also where the inspiration for the book came from. So it didn't really bother me, which is something that in some other books or other movies or whatever, it might annoy you because, oh, it's a typical popular guy and the musician, and these people that you expect to see as characters. But I felt like they were, like Rosie said before, really well. They are all flawed, so they are not the typical jock or the typical popular girl. It's a lot more to them than that, even though they are introduced sort of as that, so you get the idea of what kind of character it is. So I really like that she didn't just completely use the cliches and just run with it. Like, she gave them a lot more depth than that. And I love isolated settings. Put a group of people somewhere and they start dying and they cannot run. It's just, I love it. So I don't mind that trope at all.
Yeah, me too. I really want to write one. I need to think of like, well, I actually have one in the back of my mind, but I want to think of like a really unique one that hasn't been done before. I think that'd be really fun. So we've got some people in the comments saying about, let's see, talking about that question. Yes. Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that actually. Did either of you have any thoughts about that?
It was subtle. I don't think I massively picked up on that. Like, yeah, well, there was the whole like photography flash thing. So I was like, is it the camera flash?
Yeah.
Thing. But then I was like, well, we're with Ava, but then we're missing time, so maybe she doesn't remember. I'm probably not clever enough to be like, aha, hypnotic triggers. I'm probably not bright enough to think that. But I love that idea. I love that was something that Andrea's picked up. That's really cool.
But I love that about books, that sometimes that could be something completely intentional that she'd researched and somebody's picked up on it, or that could just be a direction that a reader finds. Because I think I went to a Lainey Taylor talk and she says that she tries to remind herself that once a book is published, it belongs to readers, and then it doesn't belong to her anymore, and they can just interpret it how they see fit. And I thought that was really beautiful, and it helps me as an author to kind of go, I've got to let go of this now. I can't angst forever about that thing that is published and I can't change. Charlie, it looks like I'm going to let Kev make the final decision because I said I would, but sounds like Charlie might be a winner. And Sharon, maybe if yours never made it, then perhaps, or maybe that is the answer. Maybe it was meant to be Andreas and he didn't actually ever give me his address. Okay, we'll figure that out. But yeah, so between the three of you, I'll let Kev sort it. Oh, hang on. Let's see. So Kev's only just posted it. Excellent. So hopefully then between Andreas and Charlie, we might have found our two winners. Yes,
nice.
Real. So me and Kev on the same page there as usual. That's good. Right, lovely. Okay, so did you find it scary? That is my next question. I did. I was quite scared quite a few times, and I think as soon as a few people died as well, in some books, I get sort of a bit desensitized to it, and I'm like, oh, it's just another death. But actually, in this, it just made me feel more and more uncomfortable and more like worried for the characters because you just knew what was going to happen. How about you, Kasia? I know you're harder to scare than me. So were you scared by this book?
I'm just at this point so desensitized. I haven't found books that really scare me in a long time. Sometimes they disturb me, and I enjoy that. But like, it's really hard for me to get scared with books or movies anymore. When you've been reading and watching so much horror for years, I think it's normal. And also I find horror comforting. So it's not, I don't go to horror to be scared like other people do. I go to horror to find comfort and peace and relax.
I get that.
Which
I
might
think
sound weird, but it is what it is.
it doesn't to me. Like, honestly, reading a book like that, if I'm stressed or having like some sort of existential, because sometimes my brain goes on a spiral and I have to bring it out of that spiral.
Yeah.
Reading a book like that completely snaps me out of it because I just get so immersed in it, and their lives are more terrible than whatever I was spiraling about because there is an evil supernatural creature after them. So
But
yeah, I
I
completely
like
get that.
it. I think it will be really effective for people because the atmosphere is really good. It really gets you in the spooky mood, and I think it has also a lot of things that are more diving into the psychological horror because they pass out and they remember things, they hear voices, someone whispering things to them. So it goes a lot more into psychological a little bit. which I think a lot of people enjoy, can be really scary. Um, and there's some nice kills and all of that. This one is not really bloody as other YAs might be. This one keeps it a little bit more, you know, um, yeah. There's not much blood or description of dead bodies and stuff like that. So I feel like this would be a really good introduction to young readers or people that want to read something spooky, but that they're not ready maybe for something that it's too much. But yeah, I think the atmosphere is great. So a lot of people, I think, are gonna find it really spooky.
Yeah, I think spooky is a good word for it. I think I don't know that I was hugely like terrified, but I was creeped out for most of the book. How about you, Rosie? Were you scared at all or creeped out or anything in
Scared
between?
is such a hard thing to be by books. I just feel like a lot of horror movies use jump scares or gore to kind of affect us, and that's a lot harder to do in a book. Like the jump scare in a book is a lot harder to do. I have been scared twice in my life by books. Both books I was not expecting. Neither books I think were intending to do that. Actually, no, 3 times. I can name 3 books. They were all adult books, and it was simply one line in context of something else was what made me go, oh, I have actual goosebumps, and like I want to wake my husband up and be like, I need to tell you this. So it didn't make me do that, but that I think is hard to do, and instead it has that kind of pervasive, I used to say, spooky, creepy atmosphere where I'm fixated on what's happening, and I really, really don't want it to happen to me. That would be great, thanks. Which is a different kind of horror, isn't it? It's a different kind of creeping dread, which I think is just as effective, and I think books do that so beautifully in a way that some movies do. Like the Witch, I think, does that really well. That creeping, eerie dread kind of does that. This was that for me, but faster paced, where I didn't know what was around next corner. I was pretty sure somebody was going to die, and it was not going to be nice, and they were going to have a horrible secret that was shared. And as you say, like, it was the psychological aspect of, like, particularly when they got the idea that, like, if you share your secret, it will not end well for you. And it's like, oh, well, surely it's simple for them to just not share anything. But then you have all the psychological weaving between all those characters, where secrets are kind of connected, and some people might be revealing things and confronting people and forcing them to talk when they don't want to, and then others who are being manipulated by whispers to say things that they wouldn't otherwise say, so then they're not in control. And it was that idea of not being in control at all that I found most, like, scary. But I wouldn't say it was like goosebumps on my skin, I need to throw up kind of scary. And it wasn't jump scare scary, it was just that constant thing of, like, I am so glad this is not my life. Because I would not live long.
Yeah, the idea of not being in control is terrifying, isn't it? And I think that's where the supernatural can be scarier than the real, I think, because knowing that you are, like, because early on I was just thinking, well, it's obvious, I just wouldn't say it, and I won, hooray. But it isn't as simple as that. And I think that's what's really scary, that you can't trust yourself to have your usual control that you would have.
Yeah. You can't trust yourself or anyone else.
No.
Or any
or Catherine Foxfield, she's got, she's going to lead you down a path, make you question everything and everyone, and I love that.
For me, there was something that happened towards the end that, for me, was one of the best parts of the book, and it's when they go to these maze of mirrors, and I realized that basically their worst fear is looking into themselves and finding out that they've become maybe the person that they didn't want to become. They face themselves in the mirror and they realize what they are now, that they have accepted their secret and it's come out, and they realize, that they are not the good person they thought they were. And I thought that's a real fear that humans have, to become something that is scary for yourself, that it's inside of you. And I think that's what was one of my favorite parts of the book. Yeah.
The bit that really quite scared me as well was when, I wish I could remember all the characters' names. I'm terrible. The one who fell down the hole and you thought that she was gone and she was, like, tied up in these vines. I just had a really visceral imagining of myself in that position and not knowing if at any moment you were just going to be plunged into this endless pit of darkness. I was like, that I can think of worse things, but that's pretty high on the list of terrible things to happen to you. So well done, Catherine, because you really got me there. Yes, I'm not surprised, Sharon. I didn't expect you to be terrified by this one. It's nice to know we're in a good company, that, you know, we all like a bit of horror to comfort us. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same. Like, there's nothing better than like a true crime podcast, is there, to
Yeah.
soothe you to sleep, or if you want to be calm when you're driving, to hear about historical murders, you know. It was It by Stephen King for me, the TV miniseries version. I watched it at sleepover, I think, when I was 10, and then was terrified of drains for, well, till now, basically. I still don't like walking past drains. My child, who's 3, loves looking down them, and every time he does it, every time I think of Pennywise. And so that's the effect, isn't it? That, you know, nearly, well, a long time later, God, it's nearly 30 years later, yes, it's get terrifying. That's the scary part of this whole conversation. That can still have an impact on me. That image of child looking down drain still harkens back to me seeing it as a child and being traumatized. Let's see. Oops. Comments do the things that comments do. Yeah, I still think we need to try and find one that scares Sharon. I think that would be quite a feat.
Do you want me to tell you the ones that scared me, the adult ones?
Yes, do. I was going to ask you that, actually, and I got completely
Okay.
distracted. Yes, please do.
So they're like real, and again, this wasn't the whole book. It was just a single line. One of them is The Whisper Man by Alex.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were aspects about the book that did not work for me at all, but one thing that really did work was this idea of, I think ever since I saw the Gentleman episode of Buffy, where with the faces looking in windows, that's on my list of things that I'm like, nope. Just nope. And there's this scene where like the kid is in bed and you know that somebody's been abducting and murdering young boys, and then there's like a face at his window, and I was just like, no. And then the next one was Justin Cronin's the Passage, is it? With the and it's a sprawling epic kind of horror fantasy. And it's in the second part when I'm trying to do it without too many spoilers, where humanity has been significantly reduced, shall we say, and the trainload of children who were saved and survived and who are living in their encampment and who have now several generations later, or I think one generation later, where there's a character who's being trained by his father to keep the lights on because these vampiric zombie-like monster beings, it's the only thing that it gets them is UV. And then they're not like Dracula vampires. They are terrifying. They are fast. They are like, you blink and you're dead. They are so fast. They are so scary. And you've spent what is essentially the word count of a normal sized book being terrified of these things. And there's a line in there where you are told that this father and son have a sort of unsettling secret, which is that the light system that has been going strong for 90 odd years now was built in a hurry, and the whole system could not work. So essentially, like, there's a line in there where it's like, one day soon the lights will not come on, and like when you read that line, you're just like, I'm not okay.
Yeah, you did just make my skin like go cold.
I was like, I need to take a break, because you're just imagining all the worst things. And then the last one that made me go, I'm not okay, is the last line of a book in an urban fantasy series where I believe London Falling. I can't remember the author. It's a little bit harder to get hold of. But the second book in that one, the last line of the book is something like, everyone in London. And without that context, it's just a line. It doesn't matter. But if you read that series and you read that second book and you know what I'm talking about, you will go and vomit into your toilet bowl and you will not feel good. And you'll just be like, oh my God, hold on, wait, what? And it's one of my favorite series. And it's pretty brutal, but it's brilliant. So maybe one of those will give you the shivers, because they certainly didn't. But it was just that one line in each of them that really.
I was just thinking, The Stand by Stephen King like quite unsettled me. The idea of like an illness kind of wiping out humanity. I mean, we've kind of it feels a bit too close to home now, doesn't it? But there's a line in that where the main character is in the cinema and somebody coughs, and you've been just told all the way through that it starts with this cough, and it would be a really innocent line. And all the way through COVID, I was thinking about that, like, oh my God, just this innocent line of somebody behind him coughs, and you're like, oh God, everyone in the cinema dead. And it's, I think for me, like the interweaving of things that feel like something that's happening in the world as well can really terrify me. Like, I don't think I could read The Stand now. I think it still feels a bit too close to recent events. Let's see, Kev has got some nice news. Let's come away from scary things for a second. So Nikki's Book Nook, Siobhan Louise, and Sharon Joy have won for your social media posts on Instagram. So well done, Sharon. This is a good night for you. Kev has spoken. Yes, true crime is good. You can't trust us. Sorry. We will try our best to make characters wonderful and then murder them. That's the way it works, isn't it, Rosie? Basically, you
In
make people like
horrible,
them.
brutal ways, yes.
You either make them evil or you kill them. That's what happens to nice people in books. Yes, I'm really sorry. I'm not sure exactly which observation that was, but Kasha has made many.
I'm guessing the mirror.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, 10 times did leave an exceedingly long. It is. I've not read the passage just because I looked at how long it is, and then I don't think I can do it. And like now, and I think knowing what it's about as well, I didn't know that it's going to be too much of this. Yeah. What to do? Okay. I haven't seen that, but it sounds terrifying. Sharon has though. Sharon's with you on it. Oh God. That's unfortunate, Charlie. That's really unfortunate. You don't want an association with like an everyday object, do you? Like drains is pretty bad, but I can stay away from them if I need to. Okay, so I just have a couple more questions, and this one is: did you like the open ending? I'm jealous of all the cats that people are stroking. Can we just? I could stroke like a cuddly toy or a toddler; it wouldn't have the same effect. In fact, I'm not getting them up. I'm not opening that can of worms. So, what do we think of the open-ish ending? Because I'm now questioning myself 2 weeks after reading it. It had an open ending, didn't it? Like Ava kind of goes off on the boat, or the little boat, I think it was. Like, what do we think of open endings? Kasha, did you like it, or do you like some resolution?
I don't mind open endings at all. My partner hates them, so when we go to the cinema and a movie has an open ending, I smile. I know he's mad. He needs an explanation for everything, otherwise he's not okay. I don't need an explanation. I like to keep things open sometimes. One of my favorite open endings, I don't think it's a spoiler, is there's an open ending in The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. I know a lot of people had a problem that it had an open ending. I liked it. I like the ending of the book more than the ending of the movie. And I don't mind it because sometimes you don't need to get everything explained. You don't need to know exactly everything. It's nice to try to figure it out. Did Ava leave alone? Did something went with her? Is this going to now go to shore, to everybody else? Is it going to spread again and kill people? And it's nice just to have the doubt and not know. So I didn't mind it, but I understand that some people don't like to have a lack of answers. So yeah.
It doesn't bother me as much in horror. I'm with your partner on some films. Like, if it's a romance, say, I just want people to be happy. Like, if it's been built up, I get really upset by those romances. The ones where everybody's happy and then one of the main characters gets poorly and passes away right at the end. I'm like, no, I can't go with those. If I find out that it's one of those, like, I will not watch it or read it just because I can't be happy and then have it ripped out from under me. Like, if that's what I've gone into the thing expecting, if that makes any sense. Whereas in horror, people are like dropping like flies, it's kind of okay. And an open ending I can cope with. I think it's if it doesn't give me what I thought was promised, an open ending upsets me. How about you, Rosie? Are you an open ending fan? Did it work in this one?
I am in general. I think for me it really depends. I think what I love with open endings in thrillers and horrors in particular is that there's always so much nuance there, and one little tiny thing can tip it one way or the other. So I always feel like there's little hints in there. But I understand why some people, it's a very Marmite choice, and I understand why some people don't like it, but I do think it can be really, really effective. And I did really like the final line of the book, and I realized that wouldn't have worked if it wasn't an open ending. Like, that line needs an open ending to be as impactful as it is, and it's a great closing line. So I was like, is it gonna do this? Is it gonna end without me really knowing? And I was like, it is, and I can't be mad about it because I'm now thinking about it after I've closed the pages. Yes. If I'd have known, if there had been a resolution, I'd been like, cool, I don't need to think that was fun, but I'm not going to carry it with me. And I feel like an open ending can make the book more likely to stay with you because you're wondering about the fate of that character and what hints there might be in that closing passage or that closing chapter as to which way it's going to go.
I think that, yeah, I think short stories can do that as well, can't they? Like
Mhm.
sometimes a short story just ends with a gut punch because you've got such a small amount of words, and in a YA book you've got a comparatively small amount of words, so sometimes an open ending does a lot of work for you because it can make readers really mad if they don't like the way their imagination takes it, but they don't have to take it in that direction if they don't want to.
And it can be scarier. Like your imagination could be worse than whatever's going to be on page. So not knowing an ending right there can just be like, it's kind of its own heart wrench, which is what you want when you're crafting something that's supposed to make people's heart go and be like, and then
See, Charlie's with me. Fantasy and romance, we don't want that. In fantasy, we want them to throw the ring into the burning mountain and things to be fine. In romance, we want them to kiss and fade, you know. Agreed. Totally with you there, Charlie. To be fair, I think Esme and Ava were the two that I was rooting for. And maybe that's why she took Esme away, because it's like you build somebody up to rip them away from the reader. It's a bit of a choice, isn't it, that we like to make?
Sacrifice, wasn't it? It was a very effective sacrifice.
Yeah, it was. Yes, agreed, Sharon. Yes, I think we're all kind of on the same page with that one. Definitely, we are people of like minds. So let's go to the last question. So let's see. Can you recommend any books? I've already done it for anybody who wasn't with us right at the first couple of minutes. I recommend Catherine's other books because she's very good at reinventing what she does really well and choosing different premises and completely different character stories, but also kind of holding to what she does well. I also recommend Cynthia Murphy's books, and Kat Ellis's books do that really, really well too. Have that horror thriller feel that feels very fun. And yeah, they're my choices. How about you, Kasha? Do you have any horror thriller recs?
I think what I would recommend is The Midnight Game by Cynthia Murphy, because you have kind of the same vibe, because the characters also have a secret that they have to write in a paper to play the game, and then they have to play the midnight game. They're also trapped in a building. They have to survive the night. And in this case, they are strangers. It's not like they know each other, like in Good Girls Die First. But I feel like it has the same vibes. And The Midnight Game has been one of my favorite reads this year. I think it's been one of my favorite YAs, like horror thrillers that I've read, because it did the horror so well. It was so creepy because you need to imagine there's no technology. They have to play the midnight game with a candle. If the candle blows off, then they are screwed. It's really tense. So I think it really worked well.
Yeah, and it plays that line, doesn't it, of without spoiling it, is it supernatural or is it not? At first, you don't know whether they're just playing and somebody horrible is in there with them, or whether something horrible is in there with them. Yeah, that's a good call, actually. How about you, Rosie? Do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I was seeing if my copy is too far, and it's quite far up there. There's a book called Rules for Vanishing by, I think it's Kate
Alice Marshall.
Yeah. And it was so much more than I expected it to be, and it's very different from this in many ways. It's like clearly supernatural, kind of. It kind of flips it on its head, where there's a bunch of people and there's this folkloric idea of this road, and if you get on the road you can't get off the road and people go missing, and there's a character who's looking for her missing sister, and she convinces semi-convinces, semi is circumstance, and they're dragged along, but a bunch of kids go onto this mysterious magical road on this adventure, and once you're on that road the only way out is through. And there are terrifying monsters, and you don't know what's going to happen to the characters. And they all, again, have this kind of idea of a secret or something that they're not sharing. And you don't know who's next, and you don't know who you can trust. And then it kind of has even more twists in it. And again, I don't want to say too much because I'm going to spoil it, but it does also have that question of, is this supernatural or is this happening in somebody's mind? But then it does another thing after that. Even it has all these layers, and it just keeps going. And I was just like, what? Every time I thought I knew what it was, it changed, and it was very clever, and I enjoyed it.
I feel
a
like
lot.
I have that. I'm looking longingly at my shelf, but I hope I have that because I want to read it. It sounds really good.
And I'm trying. Hold on. It's also got sapphic and bisexual and some disability repping as well, for anybody interested in the
Awesome. Oh, thanks, Rosie. That's
and
a
then
really
I would
good
also say Gina's new book.
Yes.
It's kind of very different, but certainly if you want books where you can't trust somebody, and you just want a really good like thriller where you're getting kind of interesting flawed characters, I think that does that very well. It is a bit different in format, but I would recommend it. It's really good.
Awesome. Okay, let's go through the comments and then we'll
Can I mention one more book?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I would like to ask you actually, because I feel like this one is also related and I have it on my radar. So I want to know if you guys have read it. And that is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson, because it also follows teenagers that are in a car. I think they're going to spring break. And there's a sniper that chases them or something because one of them in the car has a secret. And I'm like, this sounds fantastic. So I'm like, this also sounds like it could fit also, as a recommendation for kind of like the same vibe. But I still have not read it. So I don't know if you have read it and can recommend it.
Yeah, I have. That's a perfect recommendation. Yeah, they're in sort of an SUV type vehicle. And yeah, it ends up being, it doesn't spoil it because it's very near the beginning, that they're stuck and the vehicle won't move for whatever reason. And yeah, they don't know where the sniper is and they're just trying to survive and figure out whether they can trust each other, who this person on the outside might be. Yes, it definitely has a similar vibe. And yeah, Good Girls Guide to Murder, also by Holly Jackson, is a good shout in that direction as well if you're wanting a twisty murder mystery. Twisty murder mystery, that's hard to say at this time of the evening when I'm quite tired already. Okay, so Corey, Charlie and Andreas on Bookplates, their social live show commenting, so please send me your addresses and we will get that sorted. Yes. Yeah, I mean, she did strike me as a bit older actually in my head. I imagined her to be like in her 20s and already kind of lived a lot, but I suppose a lot of teenagers can have been through more than I had by the time I was that age. I do, but yes, please do, because I'm like, it'll be somewhere. As soon as another person comes along, your life kind of starts being your own for pretending to be someone you're not to keep them happy. That is a very that's a very wise kind of bleak outlook, isn't it?
Also describes my dating in my teen years. Like actually quite, where I was like dating boys I didn't really fancy because I was like, I'm not queer, young boys. And honestly, if I'd just been honest, I would have just pledged my huge undying love crush to my best friend and just told her how I felt, and then hopefully dated her for like the whole of high school. Didn't happen, alas, but in my dreams it did.
Oh, see, I did date my high school crush and married him, so that was probably fairly rare. Yeah, so that worked out. Okay, let's see. So me and Charlie are just on the same wavelength here because same recommendations. Yes. Yep, they are awesome. Yes, that is so good. Yep. And actually, while we're talking high-tech twists, Game Over Girl by Naomi Gibson is really good in that regard as well. And the virtual reality idea of, is this real? Is it actually happening? Questioning everything.
And I think this book Kills as well is an interesting one to add. I mean, it's a little bit more dark academia-esque, but again, it's got that lovely kind of twisty, can you trust anyone? It's about somebody who writes a short story where a character is killed in a short story and then murders start happening. They're exactly like the way she's killed people in books. It's very clever.
Yeah, I started reading that one on my Kindle, and then when other stuff comes along and you're reading something really good, but it just vanishes down the Kindle list, then you forget. And I now really want to read it. Now you've said that. Yeah, it was really, really good, the beginning that I read. Yes, Rachel Burge is great too. And let's see.
Sorry, my cat is a bit needy, so he's not.
No, it's very sweet. It's very sweet.
No worries. I did hear what I thought was a toddler crying, but I think it might just be a little cat meow, so we're all right. Oh, that sounds interesting. Dark Carnival. Thank you for that. Oh no, I think that actually is a little person. Luckily, we've nearly finished, so I might be able to go. Yes. That's probably a good note to end. UKYA is brilliant, and we had a good discussion about it. So just to summarise, check the comments. If you aren't sure if you want something, just reach out to me and I will let you know. We are reading Last One to Die this month with the Y Book Club, and the chat will be at the beginning of July, and you can set a reminder for that now. So it's just time to say thank you so much to my lovely friends on screen, Kasia and Rosie. I've really enjoyed talking to you about this, as I knew I would. Thank you, people in the comments. It's lovely to see some new and familiar faces to chat about books together, and we will be doing this similar time next month, so please come and tune in for that. So thanks everyone, and I think we'll say good night there. Bye.
Bye, guys.